was among several houses which were badly damaged.
The gas explosion ripped through the village of Wickwar near Bristol just before dawn. After getting his young wife to safety, PC Nick Shaw, who first smelt the gas as he arrived home from a night shift, dashed around neighbours, getting them out of their homes. The massive blast then blew a huge crater in the road and demolished Constable Shaw's home and several others. The gas board are now trying to find out just what went wrong. The 39 residents were evacuated safely to a local social club. Most were still in their night clothes. They've all praised the bravery and quick thinking of the constable.
Tremendous smell of gas. So I went straight into my living room and phoned 999 for the emergency services. Called the wife out and sent her up the road to get her well away. And then I decided that due to the amount of gas coming out, it was obviously very dangerous. So I started running up and down neighbours and clearing the street and getting them up. And they were marvellous. They all rallied together in their night clothes and up the street and away.
Many people have said that you've saved the High Street and people's lives. What's your reaction to that?
I've been a policeman for 7 years, and it's just the sort of thing any police officer would have done. And I just knew the seriousness of the situation, and people had to be evacuated very quickly. And that was the end of it.
The fire's now out, but the road's still sealed off. Lisa Aziz for News at 1.
Major gas explosion wrecks Wickwar Village High Street. Local policeman's hero of the emergency. Hello, British Gas now say that the village of Wickwar in North Avon is safe. Many of the villagers were evacuated from their homes when leaking gas was seen bubbling under the surface of the road just after 4 o'clock this morning. More than 30 people were moved into the village hall at Wickwar, and just before 6 o'clock the gas exploded. 3 houses were demolished, at least 12 others badly damaged. Remarkably, no one was injured. But 4 elderly women were taken to hospital suffering from the effects of cold after being moved out of their homes. They were moved out by Police Constable Nick Shaw, who smelt leaking gas after returning home from night duty. He roused his neighbours and got them to safety just minutes before the explosion. Constable Shaw's own home bore the brunt of it. The people made homeless are being offered temporary accommodation, and Avon County Council have opened up a nearby school kitchen to serve meals to people living nearby. Emergency services have been at the scene all morning, and engineers are still trying to discover why the gas main fractured. The hero of the explosion, Constable Shaw, has been talking about how he helped his neighbours.
From the front door, and as I did so, there's this tremendous whooshing noise coming from the middle of the road, because my front door of my house is adjacent to the road, and there's a tremendous smell of gas. So I went straight into my living room and phoned 999 for the emergency services. Called the wife out and sent her up the road to get her well away. And then I decided that due to the amount of gas coming out, it was obviously very dangerous. So I started running up and down neighbours and clearing the street and getting them up. And they were marvellous. They all rallied together in their night clothes and up the street and away. It was very good.
Many people have said that you've saved the High Street and people's lives. What's your reaction to that?
I've been a policeman for 7 years, and it's just the sort of thing any police officer would have done. And I just knew the seriousness of the situation, and people had to be evacuated very quickly. And that was the end of it.
Constable Nick Shaw there, and the village of Wickwar is still sealed off. The latest news now, we go over to one of our reporters at the scene, that's Bob Constantine. Bob, what is the situation now? Is the village safe?
Yes, Bruce, the gas board have now sealed off the main, and the gas is no longer leaking, and the fire brigade have been able to put out the flames. The cottage, the remains of the cottage that PC Shaw and his wife lived in, is still smouldering, but that should all be cleared up very soon now.
Now, what about all the families who've been evacuated? What's going to happen to them?
Well, it's not clear when the families will be able to go back to their homes. As you've just heard, a number of the other houses were badly damaged as well. The families are now having lunch at a nearby community centre, and hopefully they'll be allowed back probably sometime this evening.
Bob Constantine there at Wickwar, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Right, Rick Shaw evacuated 30 people from their homes in Wickwar near Bristol after he smelt gas. An hour later it blew up, wrecking PC Shaw's home and 13 others.
The explosion ripped 3 giant holes in the road, sending flames up to 20 feet in the air. One house was reduced to a shell, and more than 13 houses in all were badly damaged. Police and firemen sealed off the area, but hours after the blast, flames were still piercing through the road. In terms of human life, it could have been a catastrophe. All the villagers were evacuated to the local pub, thanks to the quick thinking of Police Constable Nick Shaw, who was woken by the sound of escaping gas.
So I went straight into my living room and phoned 999 for the emergency services, called the wife out and sent her up the road to get her well away. And then I decided that due to the amount of gas coming out, it was obviously very dangerous. So I started running up and down neighbours and clearing the street and getting them up, and they were marvellous. I've been a policeman for 7 years, and it's just the sort of thing any police officer would have done. And I just knew the seriousness of the situation, and people had to be evacuated very quickly. And that was the end of it.
Ironically,
A policeman loses his home too, but he's the hero.
Villagers claim heavy lorries may have caused the gas leak.
And in sport, Bristol City prepare for Cup Derby with Plymouth before 20,000 fans.
Good evening. Well, first, the gas explosion at Wickwar in North Avon. It ripped through the village high street just before 6 o'clock this morning, only minutes after the local policeman who lives there had evacuated his neighbours after smelling leaking gas. Well, the blast destroyed his home and badly damaged those on either side.
Young policeman was the toast of his village today after he saved it from tragedy in the early hours of the morning. PC Nick Shaw smelt gas and heard it escaping outside his house in Wickwar near Bristol after he'd returned home from the night shift. He immediately called the emergency services, woke everyone up and organised their evacuation to the local pub. Half an hour later, there was an explosion in the street which destroyed the constable's own house and badly damaged several others. As one neighbour put it, if he hadn't acted so quickly, we'd all have gone up. Tonight, PC Shaw is homeless, but a local hero, praised by his own senior officers, the gas board and local politicians. The village of Wickwar is in North Avon, not far from the M5 motorway, and one possible explanation for the leak is that a heavy lorry taking a short cut fractured the gas main. There's to be a full investigation. Gerald Haycock reports.
The gas explosion just before 6 this morning lifted the surface of the main road through the village and sent flames 15 feet into the air. One house was totally destroyed, more than a dozen others badly damaged. Incredibly, no one was even hurt, thanks entirely to the alertness of a young off-duty policeman. He heard a thump and then smelt gas.
There's a tremendous whooshing noise coming from the middle of the road outside my front door and a very strong smell of gas. I immediately knew that there had been a major gas leak, so I went straight into the house, dialed 999 and asked for the police to contact the fire brigade. I sent my wife out of the house and up to the pub, and then I just decided I ought to evacuate the whole street and then close the road off.
So what happened when the explosion occurred?
Well, I'd come into the social club here because it had all been evacuated, and we all sat around talking and laughing and joking about it, and suddenly there was this tremendous whoomph, and the floor seemed to move as well, and I went outside and saw that my house was going up in flames.
The 36 residents evacuated to the village social club half an hour before the explosion are already treating PC Shaw as a hero.
He said to us, there's a massive gas escape, you've got to get out quickly. And so we just grabbed some things, grabbed the dog, threw the cat out the back, and it came up here. If he hadn't acted quickly, I think the first big lorry to have gone over that gas leak, and we would all have gone up.
At midday, the gas board turned off the mains and the flames were finally extinguished. Investigators say they have no idea yet how the explosion occurred, though villagers claim heavy lorries may have fractured the 12-inch main. Now a collection has started for PC Shaw, and the police have confirmed he will be recommended for an award.
This morning's incident in Wickwar would seem to be another example of how, when 3 factors coincide, a gas tragedy is possible. Firstly, the weather is particularly cold at the moment. Secondly, the gas mains there are old and made of cast iron. And thirdly, heavy vehicles drive through the village's main street. The result, as Anne Jones explains, can be disastrous.
10 years ago, after a spate of gas explosions, British Gas embarked on a major overhaul of its gas mains. Over 7 years, it replaced 14,000 miles of old cast iron pipes with PVC at a cost of £780 million. Over the next 5 years, it plans to replace 8,500 miles of mains at a cost of £1 billion. Cast iron mains, many up to 100 years old, can corrode in acid soil. If there's subsidence or heavy lorries driving over them, they can fracture. And they can crack in severe frost. To identify damaged pipes, British Gas relies on sniffer vans, whose teams have special equipment which detects gas leaks, though they can only manage inspections once a year. Last year, in the light of the Putney gas explosion in which 8 people died, the Health and Safety Executive warned British Gas that it must adapt its replacement programme to give priority where there's subsidence or heavy traffic. Villagers in Wickwar are blaming today's explosion on damage from heavy lorries. The cast iron main, which blew up, was not due for replacement for another